right, family. I am the Lord Eric Steele, aka Big Rossi Love. We are here on another episode of FBA All Day, the show about justice and understanding for our people. We have some very interesting emails that I'm going to get into today, some very good questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I'll take these questions in good faith as in the point that maybe you just don't know. And there's some history that eludes a lot of people. So we're going to get right into it because there's a couple of them that I want to get to on this episode, okay? The question that I'm going to answer first is it says, oh, there's still Mexicans should get reparations too because the U.S. stole land from Mexico. Okay. That's an interesting question and a couple of different points to that statement. Well, first of all, reparations is reparations is for repair. Reparations is for the repair to the damage and harm that's been done to our people, the foundational black Americans, okay? That's why we're seeking reparations. That's why you hear so many people talking about it now. This question, should Mexicans get reparations, is is interesting in a couple lights because I don't really think the Mexican people remember their history. They're not they're the history is being rewritten for some reason and people don't have the whole vision. So I'm gonna bring some things to light here. I'm gonna bring some things to you to light. Um, uh, uh, interesting tidbit. First of all, that a lot of people are not aware of. I'm not sure that you're aware of it. I won't say nobody knows, but here's some things you may not be aware of. Did you know that in the area of Northern California, it was once owned by Russia? Did you know that? Did you know that the area of Northern California, um, well north of LA, I'll break it down for you. There was a Russian company. It was owned by Ivan Kuskov, the founder of Fort Ross. Fort Ross was founded by Ivan Kuskov. Okay, and from 1812 to 1821, he was the administrator. Okay, that Russian company, it controlled, it wasn't that big, but they controlled a small portion of the northern coast of California. Okay, that territory was still diplomatically, it was considered a part of Mexico. It was considered the territory of Mexico, but that area within that territory was actually owned by the Russians. The situation, it terminated itself, or it ceased to be that the case when the Russians sold that fort. They sold that fort in 1841. Okay, so in 1841, a person named John Sutter bought that area. He bought the fort. He bought the surrounding and the adjacent properties in 1841. But then John Sutter, subsequently, after the Russians left, he created, he turned Fort Ross into Fort Sutter. So before it was Fort Sutter, it was Fort Ross. When Sutter bought it, he put his name on it. Obviously, that's what people do when they purchase things. They take possession, they change the name. Okay, that area, Fort Sutter, later became the capital. That area became the capital, California. It became Sacramento. A lot of people didn't know that. So even though that area of California, the northern part of California, it was once owned by the Russians. And then the Russians sold it to John Sutter, and John Sutter, the American, renamed the area, and that area became what is now Sacramento. So in that area right there is where that happened. So I just wanted to give you that little tidbit for those people who thinking that they were all entitled to that. This was a lot of uncharted territory here at one time. It wasn't the vast sprawling metropolises that it is now. Okay. So I'll dig a little deeper into this situation here as well. But great email, great question. Also, this theory that I keep hearing, or this statement that I hear repeated a lot, the United States stole land from Mexico. This is incorrect. That's just not what happened. And let me explain. I'll break it down. There was a treaty. The treaty is an agreement between two governments. They have an agreement, a contract. It's called a treaty. The foundational Black Americans have a treaty as well. But this particular treaty is the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it officially happened at the end of the Mexican-American War. So that was 1846, 1848. Okay? It was signed on February 2nd, 1848 in the town of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The treaty was signed in this town called Guadalupe Hidalgo. Okay? After the defeat of the army and the fall of the capital in September 1847, Mexico entered into peace negotiations with the United States envoy. The resulting treaty required Mexico they succeeded 55% of the territory. And I'm going to tell you what those territories are. It was the present day would be considered California, Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Diego, the whole state of California. It was Nevada. That's where you have Las Vegas. It was California, Nevada. It was Utah. It was a big portion of Colorado, so the Rockies. It was New Mexico and Arizona. All that was considered Mexico territory before the Mexico-American War. Okay? They stipulated those areas that would be succeeded to the United States, and then they set the border for Mexico and the United States. It will be recognized as the Rio Grande, will be the southern boundary of Texas. Okay? That would be the borderline. In turn, now this is where it gets interesting. In return for that boundary being set there and the succession of that area that is now those states, the U.S. government paid Mexico $15 million. Okay? So the United States paid Mexico $15 million for that area. Now, in that time, those areas were not densely populated. They weren't growing, sprawling cities and all that yet. None of that stuff hadn't happened yet. Okay, so all Mexico knew was that it was just barren land. It's just land. There was nothing on it. It had no real value other than it just being land. Okay, and then this is back in the 1800s. So when the United States made that purchase for $15 million, that's not stealing. Just because Mexico set their price, the price was agreed upon, they sold the land. Now, if we turn the land into something fantastic, that's not our problem. Nothing was stolen from Mexico. Mexico made their deal, and it is what it is. Nothing was stolen from them, okay? So don't feel that's not the way to look at it. Nothing was stolen from them. The United States did not steal those states from Mexico. Mexico signed a treaty and agreed to secede those lands after they got their butts kicked in that war. Okay? So the Rio Grande is the southern boundary of Texas. In turn, the government paid Mexico $15 million. In consideration for the extension acquired by the boundaries of the United States, Mexico also agreed to pay any debts owed to the United States citizens. Any debts that they owed to people out there, they agreed to pay the debts. And Mexicans in areas annexed by the U.S. they were given a choice to either relocate back to Mexico or they would become full United States citizens. They would become citizens if they stay. Like the Mexicans who were still in the Mexican territories, they had the choice. They could either relocate back to Mexico or they could consider themselves, they would be considered official United States citizens. Those were the options given to them, presented to them. So nothing was stolen. The United States ratified that treaty on March the 10th and in Mexico on May 19th. Those ratifications were exchanged on May 30th, and the treaty was proclaimed July 4th in 1848. You see? So both sides agreed upon, all the negotiations were met, and Mexico was paid $15 million back in those days, which was a tremendous amount of money. In the 1800s, to get $15 million was substantial. Okay, so they were paid, and they were paid well. They had their chance. They made their bargain, and that's what they decided to do in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. That's what happened. Okay, so that's where we are with that question. That's where it is. I don't believe they deserve reparations. If there was any damage from that war, they made their treaty. They made their deal. They've been paid. That's completely different from foundational Black Americans. From all the work we've done building this nation, we've never received a dime. We've never received compensation for the work we've done here on this land. For building this nation, we've never been compensated. That's what we're after. And we have a treaty as well. It's the Treaty of 1866. We do have a treaty, but it hasn't been lived up to. And spades is what we've called they've reneged. They haven't paid up. But we have a treaty as well. We just have to get them to honor their word and respect their word. So that's where we are with that. And so in response to your question, the answer is no. I do not think Mexicans deserve reparations because they've been paid for the west coast of the United States. They've already been paid for that. Their property, or what they had possession of back in those days, their territory, they sold it to the United States. They signed a treaty. They got paid. So no, I do not believe they deserve reparations. There wouldn't be no reparations for them because they haven't been harmed. Okay? You make an agreement, it is what it is. All right. So that's my position on that question. Next question, okay? Why should the people in California pay reparations to black people when we didn't have slaves? Okay, so more disillusioned, uninformed, more individuals who are, I don't want to say ignorant, but maybe you just don't know. For you to make that statement, why should the people in California pay reparations to black people? We didn't have any slaves. First of all, California is a part of the United States. That's the first thing. The second thing, the government, it was the law in the United States okayed slavery. Law was used to oppress our people. It was the law of the United States government that held us in slavery. Is California part of the states? Is California part of the same government? Does the same government exist that's governing California that participated in this? Yes, it's the same government. Okay? The same government, so the same institution is responsible for our reparations. You can't just say, oh, we don't want to. Okay, well, if under that thinking, black people could say we don't want our tax dollars going to Israel. We could say we don't want our tax dollars going to Israel. We're not the Nazis. We didn't do nothing to them. We didn't harm them. So why are we helping Israel? Under your thinking, by that logic, why would we want our money to go anywhere else? You're thinking about life wrong. Not only are you thinking about it in the wrong aspect, but let me give you a little piece of history. Actually, California did have slaves. In 1850, the California Constitution outlawed slavery. They outlawed it. They said it was illegal to have slaves in 1850. Okay? Slaves were there. They outlawed it in 1850. And this is where it becomes interesting for you. There was a Mormon colony who openly practiced slavery in California. That colony was in a place that became known as San Bernardino. For those of you who don't know, if you ever watched the Ice Cube movie Fridays, the second Friday when cousin Day Day comes into the picture, and Uncle Willie and all them, they lived in a town called Rancho Cucamonga. Rancho Cucamonga is 20 miles west of San Bernardino, and it's about 11 miles north of Riverside. It's like a triangle. There's Rancho Cucamonga, there's San Bernardino, and then Riverside is down here. So it looks like a triangle on the map. I'll show you the map. This is the map. Okay, so it's not in Los Angeles County, but it's called the Inland Empire. It's just to the east of L.A. County. So it's where L.A. County, San Bernardino County, and Riverside County they meet right there. So that little area right there, it's a pretty affluent place to be. It's not what you would call the ghetto. They have some bad areas around there, but it's nowhere near like old Compton or something like that, because the new Compton looks good these days. But yeah, so it's not that bad there. But yeah, Rancho Cucamonga, San Bernardino, that area called San Bernardino. What happened was the Mormons came there, and they were practicing slavery. They came with slaves. The Mormons did, and the local government didn't do anything about it. The local sheriffs, the local marshals, those people, they knew that that colony right there, San Bernardino in California, Mister, we didn't have slaves in California. That colony right there of Mormons, they had slaves. They had a lot of slaves. As a matter of fact, L.A. was the bustling city at that point. But if you look up, here's an interesting tidbit. If you look up San Bernardino's history, they will say, well, you look up or Google, was there slaves in San Bernardino? It'll say something like, oh, they had very few slaves, or there was 20 or 26 slaves there. That's not entirely accurate. That's what started. That's how it started. There was 26 or 20 slaves there. When the colony first began, they had 20, 26 slaves there. But it grew into a big thing. And if you keep reading whatever you find online, it will tell you that they were so they were so prosperous there with those slaves that their economy rivaled Los Angeles. Their agriculture, the field work, and the mining. There was some mining too, if I'm not mistaken. There was so much richness being found there. They were prospering so much that that city of San Bernardino, their infrastructure of their infrastructure as far as monies and commerce, it rivaled Los Angeles. It certainly did. That's why that city is still there to this day, built off of those slaves the Mormons brought there, built off of those foundational black Americans that the Mormons brought there. And it was a real special one. There was one in particular, this slave, her name was Biddy Mason. Biddy Mason, a fantastic foundational black American woman. This woman walked 2,000 miles. She walked from Mississippi. They made her walk. When she was sold from her owners in Mississippi, they made that lady walk from Mississippi to California. She walked. She was a very, very good businesswoman. She's like one of the first millionaires in California. Definitely one of the first black millionaires, no question. She had a lot of land. She had her story is just phenomenal. There's going to be some stuff written about her, believe me. Biddy Mason. If you get a chance to look her up, she was a healer. When she was older, so when they sold her, they got so much money because she knew how to heal. She was and if I'm not mistaken, the people who had her in Louisiana, they bred her, so they made kids with her. You know, when they say bred, that means they raped a slave and made a baby. So some mulatto kids running around because of that. But she was a medicine woman. She was very intelligent. She was very intelligent. She went on to make land deals. She was very good at networking. When she finally got to San Bernardino, when they brought her there as a slave, she linked up with some free black men, had let her know. Because remember, it was illegal for slaves to read and write. That's why we had so much problems with Kanye talking about slavery was a choice. First of all, this wasn't our language. The foundational black Americans, we were mixed in with the Indians. This English was not our language. So not only did we not understand a lot of the stuff that they were saying to us, but then we were forbid from reading. They didn't want us to read. It was illegal to read. It was illegal for a slave to read. It was illegal for a slave to learn how to read, to be taught how to read. It was illegal. Okay? But Biddy Mason was so intelligent when she was networking with these freedmen once she got to San Bernardino. She went and filed, she had a court case where she had them deem her a freed woman. She got her freedom in San Bernardino because the Mormons, they were just going to keep using slave labor. They didn't care. They didn't care. As a matter of fact, they tried to escape and they got caught trying to go back to Texas. They were trying to get out of San Bernardino because it was illegal to have slaves in California. But they did it for so long without consequence, a lot like what we see in our government today. They do things without consequence. It's the same thing. It's like the things that we see going on with our government right now. There's no consequence. So even though it's illegal, they do it because they know nobody's going to do anything to them. Oh, it's very illegal, but they'll do it anyway. You see? So, yes, there was slavery in California. And yes, we are due our reparations from California. California did have slaves. There was a whole colony of slaves. And just to show you the type of people that we are, just a few of us that was there had so much commerce generated off of us. Because you got to think, every industry in this United States has its base and foundation off black people. Every industry. Insurance, because slave owners would get insurance on their slaves. The clothing industry. You knew that if a person had a slave, he was responsible for purchasing clothes for those slaves. He had to get at least 2 or 3 outfits. You had the winter clothes, you had the summer clothes, and that goes for shoes. You got to have a pair of boots for working in the field, and they usually get a pair of sandals or a pair of shoes. Those things had to be paid for. The industry's it's all built on the foundation of black people. This whole country. And anywhere we go, anywhere we went, we boomed. Everywhere we went, we exploded. Everywhere. We'll start doing well instantly because these people were gaining unearned benefits. They were getting unearned benefits from our labor. That's all. We go work all day in the field and they get the money. They send their slave to their neighbor's house for him to build a house or build a shack. And when the payment's there, the money goes to the slave master. It doesn't go to the slaves. So the slave master with his lazy self is sitting up and all the money's just coming back to him. You see what I'm saying? This is why they want you to take these books out of school. They don't want their children to learn about the devious things they did to get themselves into the positions that they are in. But the bill is due. The bill is due. And a lot of people say, well, I didn't do it. What I did, well, here's the thing. You have the money that's been accumulated. That money that your parents left to you, that money that's been accumulating and growing in your trust fund, that money has its origins in our blood. It has its origins in our blood. All these big families, that money has its original origins in foundational black American blood. And it's never been compensated. It's never been paid for. You have reaped the benefits of unearned compensations. You have been reaping the benefits of unearned labor. The labor is not unearned. The compensation is unearned. You've reaped the benefits of our labor. It's just that simple. Your lifestyle was set upon something that was not earned. Your people didn't do the work. We did the work. That's why we're seeking compensation. That's what the repair is for. That's what the tangible reparations is required for. You understand? So great questions. I hope I brought some light to them for you. Not hate. This is not hate speech. This is not a hate channel. I'm trying to bring clarity to these issues for you, okay? All right? This is Lord Eric Steele. I am Lord Eric Steele. Big Rossi love. FBA all day. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, you know where to send them. This is the email. And again, FBA all day. Peace.